Hello, and welcome to the Stay Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, the glorious Season Sarowick. Hello, Season.
This sounds like this sounds like Bane pre-processing. What are you doing?
Yes, I'm going for that. Because I made a snafu in talking to you about the most glorious time of the year, Brendan Fraser History Month, where I said I didn't think I had the Banewidth to cover what we had initially talked about. And that's it is Brendan Fraser History Month, and I'm very happy to be here. It is the most wonderful time of the year at the Say Report. I'm prepared to talk about one thing right now. I don't have the full on that I would usually have for this, and I just want people to be aware of that. It's been a hard 100 and so days in this country.
Yeah, I think that it's important that we are here, and at the beginning of the show, we are here and recognizing. I think it's also something that I think our fans have probably noticed is that we are also starting to run out of material in certain for certain things. Look, I love Brendan Fraser, and I love the work that he does, and he is only but one man. So,
yes,
there's
true.
A limit there, right? As we've had major discussions like this when it comes to things like the ASCU, I will sit here and promote that we are in the penultimate season of that, as it were. Penultimate episode of the penultimate season is up currently.
Yeah.
There's only so much we could talk about before we start talking about George of the Jungle again. Which,
right.
Don't get me wrong, we could talk about George of the Jungle.
I can't wait to talk about George of the Jungle again.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
As the people that once released a commentary track on their own work, I think that we, the idea of being self-indulgent and revisiting material is not beyond us.
It's certainly not something we're beyond. We're going to talk about something to end this episode. We're going to talk about something, and if the show is still a show 20 years from now, we're going to talk about that something again. And if you haven't figured out what I'm talking about, that's there. But I did do a little bit of, celebration of Brendan Fraser this morning. I watched his first King of the Hill episode.
Nice. Very, very nice.
Peggy Hits the Big Leagues, where Brendan Fraser voices the flying Hawaiian, David Kalaiki-Alii. And honestly, he does nothing in that episode. If he has 10 words that he speaks, King of the Hill was pretty well established as a show that used stunt casting to get people to watch. Am I wrong in saying that? I don't want to... This is not our King of the Hill episode, but this is one of the first times that we're talking about King of the Hill. And
I
with
think
the
there's
renewal,
2 ways to look at that.
Yeah.
But I do think there's 2 ways to look at that. I think you get a guy like Brendan Fraser because you're just attracting talent. I don't think people would tune in to a King of the Hill episode just because Brendan Fraser is on it. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading that. I know you and I would, but I mean, we talk the whole reason we even talk about this in the first place is that there was a period in Fraser's career where I don't think he would have been that kind of draw. But on the other hand, you would have guys at that same time period. Just keep that in mind, Kid Rock, right? Where you end up saying, "Hey, Kid Rock's going to be on the next episode." That is definitely to draw in a crowd, right? And that is because you're going to get a certain person watching for that. So I think it balanced that a lot. I think that it knew good talent when it could, when it could get it. I think that, it was Mike Judge, who is already big for
exactly
and stuff. So it's not like it was this little unknown show that was struggling to get an audience or something. But I think we'd be remiss to not point out that they definitely did do stunt casting from time to time. But I don't know if I'd count the Fraser one as that. Is all I'm getting at. Well, especially because he only has 10 lines. It feels like it really is just a matter of he's probably in for something else. Hey, do you mind taking 30 minutes for us to direct you on these 10 lines for the King of the Hill episode at the same time? Right? Yeah.
So, it is the year 2000 it comes out. It's in the 5th season of King of the Hill. So it's the year 2000. So it is a year after The Mummy has released, and really everybody kind of starts to take notice of Brendan Fraser again. I like to argue that George of the Jungle was when people started to take notice again, but there's no denying that The Mummy will more than likely be the legacy picture of Brendan Fraser.
Well, we often talk about this when it comes to cultural shifts, is that it's not an instantaneous lights on, lights off most of the time. The rare time that it is, that it's saying something. So what you get is you get George of the Jungle, where everybody's suddenly like, oh my God, Brendan Fraser is like hot. Like I remember that guy from Encino Man, but like look at him in look at him in George of the Jungle. So then the Mummy comes along, and that's where that solidifies like, oh, he's also funny too. Like not that he wasn't funny in George of the Jungle, but it takes that second hit to really get you addicted, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. But it is, and also we're talking about stunt casting. You talk about things like Kid Rock, or I remember Snoop Dogg as the white pimp in the episode where Hank accidentally becomes a pimp is like pretty good, like stunt casting. But again, if Mike Judge comes calling, especially in the year 2000, you're going to take that call and you're going to do it. Other stunt casting I think about is Michael Keaton as the pork magnate that wants to marry Luann. One of the like most tragic moments, because the guy clearly has like a mental disorder, and right before he is turned into a sausage, he gets shocked and it like clears that brain fog up, but then he still dies. Like, choices made in that episode. But the David Kalaiki-Alii episode, I watch it for Brendan Fraser, right? And actually the really funny thing is that Dale thought that it was The Rock who was playing David Kalaiki-Alii, and considering, you know, he is a Hawaiian-born character, I understand why she would think that. But then also, as scholars of Brendan Fraser, as I'm going to call ourselves in a wickedly pretentious moment of the Say Report, who comes running when Brendan Fraser's not available? Dwayne Johnson.
The Rock is always right.
So,
The Rock is always right behind him.
So, like, it's one of those weird things where, like, when you can't see who's playing that character with what he's putting in and the way that he's playing David, because he does have, like, that emotional moment where he walks in at the end. Brief recap of the episode. Peggy gets called up to be a substitute teacher at the high school. At the same time, Hank goes to a booster club meeting for the football team, and they finally feel like they can win state because they have this great fullback in David Kalaiki-Alii. But Peggy, teaching him geometry, fails him because he's not doing the work. That's what he's earned. And then the school turns on her, the whole town turns on her, because no pass, no play. Which was...
It's actually one of the more famous episodes of King of the Hill. In a show that actually has a fair number of really kind of beloved episodes, this is one of the bigger ones where people point to like it doing some pretty damn good work for a animated sitcom.
Yeah, I think that what it's covering, the whole no pass, no play, and the fact that she comes in and has that integrity, and then Hank is so mad at her, and they come up with this work study idea where we'll have David do work study at Strickland Propane, and Hank, you'll just give him an A, so he has to write an essay, and his essay, I can't do the whole thing, but the thing is, I thank God every day I get home that I wasn't exploded. You know what? Strickland Propane doesn't have a vending machine. It smells here. I thank God every day that I didn't get exploded. That's the full essay that he writes. And Hank, it is one of my favorite King of the Hill moments. And it's not just because it's in this episode that is beloved by me and is often brought up by fans. He grabs a little plastic shot glass and an Alamo beer, and he does a shot of it in order to get up the nerve to give that essay, which is like only one sentence, maybe two, an A, so that David can play. So then he decides, you know, this kid doesn't really know anything. I'm going to flunk him, but it's too late. He's already been given the A. He's already going to be able to play. So then they say, we're going to go tell his mom that you're depriving this student, this high school age student, of an education. And that's where you have Amy Hill come in. Amy Hill's magnificent. 50 First Dates. She was in the new Mag. She's great. I love Amy Hill. If you don't know who Amy Hill is, look her up right now, and you know her from something.
Amy Hill being a human's name, not another Hill character.
Not another Hill character. That's true, right? Like, it's such a good point. She's bringing up a good point right there. And she comes in as David's mother, and she says that he has a learning disability, that he's a slow learner, and we see his bedroom, and it's got like a speak and spell, and, you know, magnetic letters on a board where he has spelled propene the way that it was spelled in the thing, and she says that every night he falls asleep with Peggy, because she made him like a playbook to teach him geometry, and, you know, he just can't retain anything. So then Peggy Hill and Hank are like, oh, well, that explains it. Like, what are we supposed to do? This is going to get him to college playing sports. But then also, like, there's that question of, like, if he's not learning in high school, how's he going to learn in college? But like, that's neither here nor there. And then they leave and say sorry that we were like trying to do something. And then Amy Hill has the best moment maybe in King of the Hill, and there's a lot of good moments in King of the Hill, but she sits on the bed like she's in tears as they walk out, and then she goes, and the Oscar goes to me. Because they were lying to the Hills. But then David comes home and he sees that they set up his room to look like this whole thing. And they're like, we convinced the Hills that you're learning disabled, and now they don't care. Now they're not going to rage against this machine. And he goes to Peggy Hill, and Peggy Hill, you know, worst character ever, Peggy Hill, but you kind of love her in just her naivete and the battles that she chooses to fight.
I take umbrage with that comment, sir, but that's to do. But you're in the middle of something, so I won't.
No. Take umbrage. Again, this is not our King of the Hill episode. We'll do a King of the Hill episode probably when the new one's coming. Like, that's one of the other reasons why.
Yeah, when the remake comes.
The revival.
Revival.
Yeah.
Man. Anyway, sorry.
No, she is one of those characters who she is very. It's not the reason why I say Peggy Hill is the worst is because she always feels so justified in herself. And, like, sometimes she's not fighting the best arguments, but sometimes you just want to root for her to be the Boggle champion of the country. I know. I mean, I like her. I don't not watch the show.
She's earnest but misguided.
Yes,
I mean, that's the entire point of her character.
Yes.
It's like she's honestly trying to do what she's trying to do. It's just that sometimes what she's trying to do is not the right decision.
Yes.
Which is the bit. That is the
which
entire
is her whole character. I mean, that's the satire. It's Mike Judge, for better or for ill. But he comes up to her, and in that beautiful Peggy Hill moment, she's like, oh no, David, the pep hall is down the hall. Wait, did you poop yourself? And this is where Brendan Fraser has that great moment where he's like, you know, it's my fault. If I had tried harder at anything in my life outside of football, you would not have been so quick to believe that I'm learning disabled and just ask me if I shit myself. He doesn't say that last part, but like it's pretty heavily implied. So then he's like, if I know pass, I should know play. He's going to suddenly be like, he's going to stand by this thing. And he's like, can you teach me geometry before the game? And another great Peggy Hillism, I could not teach Albert Edison everything about geometry in an afternoon. But there is one topic I think you could learn about. So they're back at Strickland Propane, and Hank gives him a crash course on Propane 101 for real. And David actually picks up on it because what they needed was that melding of Hank's knowledge of propane, but Peggy's ability to teach. Like, she sees that David loves football, so she starts equating things to football for him so that he can understand them better. And he actually learns about propane. And then he goes and he gets to play in the McManorberry game, and then we never see him again because he probably fucking kills himself. I'm going to steal that from Zach Morris. Is trash. But, like, yeah, he's one of those characters who shows up, and he does it, like, Brendan Fraser does a good job. But it's small. But also, I'm talking about stunt casting. Do you know who else 3 special guest stars are in that episode of King of the Hill season?
Wait, what? There's 3 other...
There are 3 other guest voices that are definitely, like, stunt casting. That you could never convince me otherwise.
I mean, is it like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, all 3 of them or something? Like what?
There are 4 members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's just 3 that we know the names of.
I'm sorry. I meant all 3 of the characters in King of the Hill being played by various people in the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No. It is Terry Bradshaw, James Brown, the sports reporter, and Howie Long. They play 3 members of the Booster Club. Terry Bradshaw plays like the head of it. The one in the yellow shirt who runs the print shop is Howie Long, and James Brown plays the for lack of a better term, African American member of the board.
Do they get 2 scenes in that episode, or is it just the one? I remember the one.
They get more scenes than Brendan Fraser. If we're going to be completely honest, in this way to kick off Brendan Fraser History Month at the Say Report. No,
but I mean, but okay, so let's bring it back, right? Let's tie it back to that. I think it's really interesting that we talk about Brendan Fraser in the year 2000. He's just come off of The Mummy and things like that, and we you know, like the fact that he is given 10 lines, and like then guys like Terry Bradshaw are getting like multiple scenes in the episode, shows you still the shaky ground that his career has always kind of been on, which is like such a fucking bummer. Which you know, we've come past that now. We've come around. He's an Oscar winner at this point, and we can praise that. But like, this is where this whole steez came from, of us being like, why don't people talk more about Brendan Fraser? Is because like, this is what would happen to him. He'd be in one of the biggest movies, if not the biggest movie of that year, in The Mummy, and then a few months later would pop up and just do a couple of lines in King of the Hill. The guy, like, and that's not saying that he shouldn't be doing those things if he's enjoying them. He's welcome to do whatever the hell he wants. It's just that the problem is that people then somehow, like, just kind of equate, like, people kind of working, like, as somehow he wasn't doing the stardom thing. He wasn't doing big movies. He wasn't putting himself in every movie. You know, the way that people talk about guys like The Rock now, where they say they're sick of seeing them in things, I'm not endorsing that opinion in any way, but It is something that is out there. Like, he never had that moment because he didn't put himself out there like that. And I don't know if that's on him. I don't know if that's on people not trusting him as a leading man. I don't know where that reasoning comes from, but it certainly explains why people just never really gave him much credit until, you know, he had decades of work underneath him, and then suddenly people were just like, you know, he's actually a pretty damn good actor.
Yeah, it is one of those. It's the craziest thing about it is anytime I tell somebody, because the last 2 weeks I have a lot of conversation with people, and they're like, oh, when we're going to hang out again? I'm like, May's kind of my busy season. And they're like, oh, with graduation? And I'm like, well, yes, graduation and commencement, that's part of it, but also it's Brendan Fraser History Month. And regardless of who I'm talking to, people get real excited when I mention that we do Brendan Fraser History Month. Like, it spirals into a conversation. So he is beloved, but you're right. He never really, like, put his foot on the gas so heavily that he became an annoyance. And that might be rude to say it, but, like, there are some people, like Jim Carrey doing 3 movies in 1994, he doesn't continue to do that. Like, he understands to back up a little bit. Where, like, Dwayne Johnson, I feel like he's doing, like, 17 movies a month.
Well, I think that somewhere along the line, and this is probably, I'm going to say this as if this is a new attitude, knowing fully well that I'm sure this has always been in the water, as it were, in Hollywood. But there is this idea that you need to hit while the iron's hot, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know how long your moment in the sun is going to last. So you do as much as you can when you can so that it's out there, and you just hope that the train never stops, but inevitably it will, right? Like, that is the attitude. And that's and like I said, that's always kind of been the attitude. It's just that
I'm going to look at Son of Kong. I'm going to introduce and say Son of Kong, the sequel to King Kong, released exactly 9 months after the first film. They weren't planning on doing a sequel to King Kong, Seachin. But we're
not talking about any of the recent Kongs. You're talking about original, straight up
1930s King Kong. Holy shit, that did so well. We need to do a sequel about his son, and his son's going to law school. I don't get that movie.
Right. But what you had back then that we kind of know you have now, but it's not nearly as like part of the discussion as it used to be, is you used to have guaranteed contracts. You would strike while the iron's hot, and what you would do is you would get like a 6-movie contract with the studio, so you at least knew you were going to make the next 6 movies. Nowadays, we don't hear so much about that. So when we see people everywhere doing everything, or more importantly, those contracts aren't as lucrative as they used to be, there's this idea that like people are just doing what they can to make their fucking money because they don't know when this train is going to stop. And we give them shit for that, but like that's ridiculous. They're doing a job, and while they're able to do more of the job and make more money, they do it. Like that's like which one of us wouldn't, I guess, is what I'm getting at in that regard.
Well, think about when you're at your job too, like a regular job. There are times where like you're in your prime and like you're going to be doing that. You're going to be shooting for the promotions. Eventually you're going to get to the part where like this is where the job has settled down and this is what I'm going to do until I retire. So like it's just treating like that. And then also I've been watching The Hunting Party. I'm going to hold anything about The Hunting Party. I have 2 episodes left. I feel like that show's going to get canceled, but I'm really enjoying it. But the 8th episode,
it feels like we've talked about The Hunting Party once or twice on this show, and I will say what I always say: it doesn't feel like it has long legs in terms of a concept.
Yeah, true.
But I think that it has. As somebody that has not watched a stitch of it yet, it feels like it's a good show, like a good concept for a show. I just don't know what kind of like ongoing story they could possibly do with that at some point.
Now you say that, right?
Again.
We are on a detour right now. We are going to get back to the Brendan Fraser conversation, but I have to say this. Shows that do not have long legs historically thrive at NBC. How did The Blacklist last for like 17 seasons?
After they killed their main character in like season like 9.
Yeah.
Didn't they
like,
kill
the show went on forever. And in the 5th season, when like it's revealed that he's not even the real Red Reddington. He's actually the guy from Mad Men. It'd have been real great if I could remember Don Draper's name in that moment, huh? But it's one of those situations where, and then remember the show Blind Spot, where the woman was found without memory in a duffel bag covered in tattoos?
Yeah, with all the tattoos.
Yeah.
It was our girl there. It's part of the reason why she walked away from the MCU for a little bit.
Yeah.
Is because she thought she was going to be the lead of this thing, and they talked about actually like how they toned down her work as what's her name in MCU?
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now while you're talking about it.
She shows up in Loki in that awesome moment.
Yeah, Jamie Alexander.
Jamie Alexander, but she plays I keep wanting to say
she plays
what is her name?
Sif. Yeah.
Sif, yeah. And like it was talked about at the time that like it was kind of this big thing with considering how big the MCU was at the time, but she was like, I'm not getting any play. I'm getting called in for like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It's like I'm not getting the big promise that I would have. So she stepped away from the MCU for a bit, didn't show up in a couple places that people had expected her to because she was going to do Blind Spot, and then Blind Spot ended up getting 3 seasons or
5. 5 seasons for a total of 100 episodes.
See?
And you know why you only think it's 3 seasons? Because by the 2nd season, they resolved everything, and how they had that end so they could have a 3rd season was she was kidnapped. All of her tattoos were covered over, and she was given new tattoos, and the fun started again. That is literally a way that NBC was like, oh man, how do we do more Blind Spot? Oh, we erase her memory again, and we give her new tattoos.
But this is like this is the system, right? The system fucking sucks. And the idea that Fraser was not working within the same system meant that people weren't seeing him, meant that people were not growing and annoyed with him like we talked about. Like, he just refused to play the game. Now, we know because of some of the ways that which he was being treated, that was why he was refusing to play the game. Also, on top of that, he just seems like a intelligent guy in that regard, and the more intelligent you are, the less likely you are to play along with this kind of bullshit, right? So the system's just not built for the ways in which a guy like Fraser wants to work it, and that sucks. But I'm glad that we were able to break through that at least a little bit and recognize him.
Oh, definitely. And again, every time it's a nice conversation when I bring them up, so I do enjoy that. And it's a good episode of the show, and I'm happy that I get to revisit it. I don't think I've ever seen his second appearance on the show, which is in season 9, so I'll probably do that as well, right? That's how we're going to, celebrate Brendan Fraser. It's going to be a little later this year. We got a lot on our plates with the Adam Sandler stuff, and that. I mean, I think we're still going to give you a nice big set-piece episode. I'm trying to convince Siegen to do Extreme Measures for its 15th anniversary. And, Harrison Ford is having a moment. So we'll see what happens. But I wanted to talk to that. But also, since one of the other big ways that we celebrate Brendan Fraser History Month is with trivia, the first Brendan Fraser History Month was celebrated with a ransom note level letter sent across state lines to Siegen with the very first Brendan Fraser History Month quiz. I have a little quiz for you right now, Siegen. And since I'm not Will... you don't need paper and pen or anything like that. I am telling you right now, The Mummy from 1999 was one of the top 10 domestic features for that year. Where on the list do you believe The Mummy is?
Would probably say probably around number 3.
Yep, The Mummy is 8th in the year 1999. Yeah. Do you want to know what the top 3 are? Because I was a little surprised.
There, right?
The Matrix is top 5. It's number 5, The Matrix.
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
okay.
1999. Turns out a hell of a year for movies.
Yeah, hell yeah. No, what else was that year then?
So the number 1 earner in 1999 was Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Oh,
which
obviously.
like once you forget about that movie, but obviously it made.
Well, no, not that you forget about that movie. You forget about when that movie released.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like you don't think about that. Number 2 was The Sixth Sense. And number 3, future very special episode topic in 4 years or so, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Nice.
Do you want to take a stab at guessing what the 7th film was in 1999?
So what beat The Mummy?
What
but wasn't...
beat The Mummy? And I'll tell you by how much it beat The Mummy. Wait, I'm trying to do the math here. Yeah, $8 million. It did $8 million more than The Mummy.
Fellowship of the Ring was the next year, right?
Fellowship of the Rings is 2001.
2001 even.
Yeah.
Okay. I honestly, I couldn't tell you. 99. I mean, I'm bad at years anyway.
Yeah,
Anybody that's ever listened to the show before knows that. But like that era is kind of a black hole for me. Because of 9/11. Like there's so much wrapped up around that I talk about stuff and then I remember, but it was actually not. there was a sweet spot there where 9/11 hadn't happened. Yeah.
Yeah, but it still kind of gets caught up, and I understand that. I am asking you. Shrek is 2001 as well, I believe. The answer is, and this is going to be fun when I get to reveal this to you, Big Daddy.
Hey, buddy.
So Chaz went off on his solo career, made one of the most memorable films in modern history of cinema, right? I think that The Mummy is definitely one of those. I think it launched a lot of ships. I think it was there is a market for this type of film still, in a lot of ways, because the 90s were
and it stood the test of time.
Yes.
I think on top of everything. Yes. Yeah, The Mummy is still a blast to go back to. Yeah.
But meanwhile, Pip and Steve Buscemi's character, because I can't remember it, were in Big Daddy and beat him by $8 million. It's just nice to see that the Lone Rangers are still working together. So that's our Brendan Fraser History Month bit for the year. For this episode, we're going to do more. If you want to send us some Brendan Fraser History Month stuff that you'd like us to talk about or discuss, you can always send an email to thesareport@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord, invitations to which are wherever we are on social media. Currently, that is X, formerly Twitter, and Facebook. But get it to us. We'll discuss it. If you have something you want to talk about, maybe we've already talked about it, we'll give it a little bit of time, right? It's a weird Brendan Fraser History Month this year, because it's a weird year. 2025 is a bit of a weird year.
Oh, yeah. I unlocked a new pet peeve this morning.
Oh, that's fun.
I was angry, found myself getting angry at an idea that I agree with, but a terrible example is being used. It was obviously, I was on the internet and shouldn't have been, but somebody was talking about what was it, the ugly duckling trope, right, in movies, the idea that like, oh, the nerd's actually hot the whole time, but then their example to talk about why they didn't like this trope was fucking Not Another Teen Movie. And I was like, but that's not they were like I hate this trope. Like, look at the way this movie handles it and how much I hate it the way this movie handles it. And I was like, and I was just like, you fucking idiots. Why would you use the satirical pointing out?
Why would you not use She's All That? Why would you not use what that movie is mocking? And then Dad, you want to talk about maybe 9/11 blindness? No, I'm kidding. That's crazy. Also 1999, by the way, She's All That. Since I have it up, where did that fall on our little list? She's All That was 1999.
She's All That. Wasn't She's All That also written by M. Night Shyamalan?
I don't know that. Who wrote I would not be
pretty sure M. Night Shyamalan has his hands on that.
Let me check. That is a question.
Yeah. No, like famously, like he was doing Punch Up for scripts before he got his big break, and one of the movies I'm pretty sure he did Punch Up on, where She's All That.
Yeah. It's something. It's not one of those things that I hear and I want to like vomit in my mouth. So it must be true. I don't know how to check this. Oh, Not Another Teen Movie is what accidentally came up as I tried to click onto trivia. Because who knows? Milo Ventimiglia has a cameo. It's not a cameo if he's just in the movie in the background. So, like, I'm sorry. M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan claimed to have ghostwritten the script. Flemings denied it. On the Blu-ray commentary for the film, director Robert Iskov confirmed Shyamalan was brought in after pre-production began as a contributor to the script. After his story points were added, the final rewrite was then handed back to Fleming so he could lend the story his unique voice in writing for teenage characters. So Punch Up is exactly what he did. He would never get like credit for what happened, but basically he like took an editor's pencil and added some stuff.
That's fucking crazy, but also it makes a lot more sense now. Like hearing that divorced from the fact that it was the same year as Sixth Sense, it actually makes a lot of sense that he's got a script that has a lot of buzz being made into a movie, so of course somebody throws another script at him to see what he can do.
Yeah.
Like, that actually makes total sense. It's one of the weirdest things when you hear it out of context that he had helped write She's All That.
Yeah, no, like, it was one of those things where I'm like, how could he have done She's All That? He was doing The Sixth Sense, the number 2 best like performing film at the domestic box office, 1999. I also really love that on Box Office Mojo, all of like the distinction to make sure that you understand that it's domestic and it's the box office. But yeah, so that was 35th in 1999. How are you going to use this? Like, honestly, CJ, you said that, I thought I was having a stroke or similar.
Exactly.
What the fuck?
But it is a common thing that happens, especially in internet arguments, where somebody's making a point you agree with, but then they shoot themselves in the fucking foot, and you watch it happen in real time, and you're just like, thanks, you fucked this argument for the rest of us. And that's what it feels like is going on a global scale for us right now. Like, the sane people in America here, like everybody else out there being like, America's lost their fucking mind, and then guys like us being like, we know it too, but like, we don't have a fucking leg to stand on. We're in the middle of this shit, not doing anything about it.
I gotta tell you though, I think some of the country knows, because we're getting listened to by a lot more international listeners. So welcome, bienvenue, welcome, any international listeners. I have seen, we're popping up and people are listening to the Say Report, probably because they want to laugh at America. So hopefully someone is listening to this and they're like, oh, at least Devon and Sejan are semi-sane. I mean, how semi-sane are we? We're crazy enough to sit down once a week and try to discuss all of this bullshit. And, just not lose our minds, right? That's what we're going for. Which does remind me, I want to take the Terry Bradshaw bit for a second. I want to connect it to the fact that I have finally finished the only season that exists of The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. What a delightful show Briscoe County Jr. is. Like, just truly. I have owned the DVDs since the first year of the Say Report. I got them for $20 at a Walmart. And this was the year where I'm like, I'm going to finally sit down and watch them. Well, the show's great. And the show was the lead-in for The X-Files in 1993. That was the pairing. And honestly, I don't know, like, how you make Briscoe County Jr. successful. They were fully convinced they were going to get a second season. There's a whole Bible for where the show was going to go now that Briscoe doesn't have to bounty hunt the Bly gang anymore. So their cancellation surprised them. And it is Bruce Campbell just firing on every fucking syllable, kicking ass. The show's great.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't remember this, let's describe what it is for a second.
Yeah. So it's set in 1893. So it's 100 years before when it is airing. And Briscoe County Sr., who's a U.S. Marshal, has captured the 13 members of John Bly's gang. And there is a daring train escape, and John Bly shoots Briscoe County in the heart and kills him. Briscoe County, by the way, played by Early Emery. So, only 2 things come from Texas. I'm not going to finish the line, but it's probably the line you know him from. I don't think if I bust out any of his lines from Saving Silverman, people would be like, oh yeah, that is Early Emery. He's got a great role in The Frighteners. I love him as like the protection from the cemetery from ghosts running away. But he plays Briscoe County Sr. So now that Briscoe County has died, all of the robber barons who are now setting up shop in California want John Bly's escaped gang brought to justice. And so they give Socrates Poole, who's played masterfully by Christian Clemenson. And also, you want to talk about like actor who gets what he's supposed to do, he never allowed himself to get comfortable riding horses because he believed that Socrates would never be comfortable riding a horse. So, like, they're like, we're going to do, like, animal training. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that because it doesn't fit my character. And
I love a man who can take his laziness and justify it in the work.
I mean, it works, though, because anytime Socrates is on a horse, like, you can tell, I am not comfortable on this horse. So it reflects, right? It's that weird sort of method acting that, like, isn't to the insane levels that you sometimes
No, it is to the level of every man can understand. I don't really want to learn to do this thing, and guess what? I don't think my character would either. So guess what?
I'm not gonna. So he is given the choice to hire somebody, a bounty hunter, to take out Bly's gang, and he decides to hire Harvard-trained lawyer and son of Briscoe County, Briscoe County Jr., who is played by Bruce Campbell. And Bruce Campbell plays this massively. So he's intelligent, he's educated, but now he is back in the Old West where he was raised to try to avenge his father's death. Classic, like, dime store novel Western setup.
Yeah, Western pulp, for sure.
Yeah.
It's really good Western pulp, yeah.
Where things go a little off the rail is that in addition to this basic Western story, you also have a pretty deep sci-fi story in the fact that some railroad workers find a mysterious UFO, unearthed foreign orb. The jokes are just so good. Like, they're like, we don't care about anachronism or all this. We are having fun. We want to recreate the Western serials from our youth. But what also was impressive and important and beloved in our youth were sci-fi stories and tropes. So they introduced this orb that the wielder of is given, like, immense power. And that orb becomes a thing that, like, that's what John Bly was looking for. That's why he got his gang together. So now this orb comes in all this time to, like, ruffle freaking Briscoe's feathers when he's doing things. And eventually, and I'm going to jump to this part because we have a lot to talk about this week. So I can't give Briscoe County Jr. Maybe we'll do a very special episode sometime. I love the show. Or maybe we'll do a podcast on it, right? We could do 27 episodes covering the 27 episodes of Briscoe County Jr.
I am willing to commit right now to a special episode for sure.
Okay,
we
cool.
Could talk about
maybe it'll be a time capsule. It'll be one of our featured episodes on Briscoe County Jr. But the big thing is that it turns out the orb is from the future, as is John Bly. So he has come back from the future to collect the orb so that he can have ultimate power in the future and rule the world. Meanwhile, 300 years from when he came back, so 2293, so 2593, that's when they sent the orbs back to the Old West, hoping to help the advancements of the human race. The show is bananas, and I love every minute of it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's a phenomenal satire on like pulp like stories and serialized stories. Like it really leans into the old serialized like Bonanza, but also in terms of the sci-fi stuff like Buck Rogers and things like that. Yeah. Like it plays off of that stuff, and then you have a guy like Bruce Campbell who is just phenomenal at that kind of stuff. I mean, the ways in which he does like Looney Tunes style comedy in Evil Dead 2 and like the Three Stooges stuff that he recreates in Army of Darkness and things. Like there's just all sorts of like really good, like he is a phenomenal comedic actor. Yeah. And then like you put him into this super satirical world and it's just magic.
Yeah. And then you also have Julius Carey as Lord Bowler. Julius Carey, probably best remembered from The Last Dragon. I remember him as the coach from The New Guy, but I have a special place in my heart for The New Guy. And R.I.P. Julius Carey, but he's so good in the show as a foil to Briscoe, and the show is just wonderful, and I really enjoyed my time with it. And I think my favorite part about it is every episode, they're hour-long episodes, but the first part is like chapter 1, and it's got like a pithy little title, as if you're reading a dime store novel, and then about halfway through the episode is chapter 2, and another like pithy title of a dime store novel. So I look at this show as this really interesting thing where they also were hedging their bets if this show goes into syndication, we can split these up into half-hour episodes. Like they kind of double their episode count by the fact that, we can do chapter 1 as an episode, and then chapter 2 can air the next day if you want. This was made by people who understood it. I mean, it's Carlton Cuse and Boehm. I can't remember Boehm's first name, and I feel like a jerk for that. I'll look it up right now. Jeffrey Boehm and Carlton Cuse. Carlton Cuse, we're going to know a couple of years later for Lost, but Jeffrey Boehm, he was in TV and he understood the production of it. He also wrote The Phantom, another future very special episode on the Say Report. He also wrote Indiana Jones
serialized, Wait, what did you write?
He wrote Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That's why he got Briscoe County Jr. He also did Lethal Weapon 2 and 3. Perhaps he did the first one too, but he's uncredited on it. Also wrote The Lost Boys, Witches of Eastwick. He's all over movies that I love. I don't want to speak for Sejan on that, but yeah. He wrote the screenplay for the original The Dead Zone. And apparently there was a Briscoe County Jr. reunion in 2020, and I'd like to hunt that down and see what that's about. But just wonderful, just a wonderful show, and I'm really happy that I took the time to watch it all. Now, and the reason that it connects to Terry Bradshaw is that Terry Bradshaw in 1993, he shows up as the main bad guy's henchman in the final 2 episodes of the series.
Nice.
So you want to talk about stunt cast. It's a good time. Yeah. But now we've had.
He was so sure he was going to have a career outside of football. He was so sure he was going to have a career outside of football.
Of the guys who've tried to have a career outside of football, I think he's done the best. Remember when he was in Father Figures? He does still show up and stuff, and he always gives his all when he's an actor. I will give him the credit that is due about that, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's always Terry Bradshaw, though. I don't think he ever loses himself to the role.
Yeah.
But so he's a guy. He's a guy who does stuff. But now we've had so much fun talking. Sejan, I gotta do it. I'm sorry, I gotta do it. But then we have much better things to talk about after this. So, but it's 16 minutes of recap, because we're recapping Suits LA. If it's the one and done, then that's all we'll say. But if it gets renewed, we're gonna keep on doing it. It Suits LA on the Say Report. Sejan, I have to ask you a question before we begin this recap of the 10th episode of Suits LA. What do you think the most dangerous pitfall is when you're doing a show that uses flashbacks to tell stories?
I mean, that you eventually contradict yourself or or break your own timeline.
Yeah, that's a really good point. This episode, Slugfest, took place in 2005 at Columbia Law School. And because up to this point, everything in the past has been taking place in 2010, and literally all of the characters look exactly the same, whether it's 2005, 2010, or 2025, they had to tell us, they felt they had to tell us every time we went from present day to the past that it was 2005. And I'm talking even for the shortest scene that took place in the past. It was a little distracting.
I would be it has been pointed out to me that I would be remiss if I did not point out that for the first few seasons of Arrow, this whole double timeline thing was also part of that show. I don't think we've talked about that, but this is the Steve Amell special of playing himself 10 years earlier.
Right, because when he's on the island and learning this stuff, I don't know. I've never really seen Arrow. What was the dual storyline in that? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So for the first season, it's the island. For the second season, it's what happens in his escape after he escapes the island. But it is consistently this 10-year thing of he's been missing for all this time on the island, and then now he's back, and then there's always these dual storylines about what he learned when he was off in the world, and then
how it applies to this week's shenanigans.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody pointed out to me that that's exactly what happens on Arrow too, and I just completely kind of blocked that concept out, I guess.
That's hilarious. That's because, like Paul Rudd, Steve Amell is timeless. He will look the same no matter what. He looks like he looked 20 years ago, 15 years ago, or today. But you're also right about breaking the timeline, where you could introduce something or some character or some fact that really kind of makes the whole House of Cards fall down faster than House of Cards starring Kevin Spacey when he admits, I'm a rapist, but that's because I'm gay and I was persecuted for that. Fuck you, Kevin Spacey. I don't know why I decided to fuck Kevin Spacey right here. Not literally, figuratively, but I'm just thinking about it. I said House of Cards, that's why. Also, I watched The Princess Bride, so it all kind of connects within my web. But yeah, it collapses your House of Cards. So going back 20 years before, here's what happened between Stuart Lane and Ted Black. For the first time ever in Columbia Law School history, they have a tie for who should be the top member of the class. They're sitting in the dean's office waiting to hear who is number 1 and who is number 2. And the dean comes in and he's like, it's incredible, you guys are tied, 100% tied. So in order to determine who the winner is, we're going to have a mock trial. And it's like, okay, so Ted, being Ted, he's like, I don't want to be the defense. And Stuart, I'll be the defense because whatever. And the whole thing is, whoever wins this mock trial is the first in the graduating class at Columbia Law School for 2005.
Okay.
That's the storyline. But also, the facts of the case are 3 people in a car, a father and his 2 sons. Youngest son was sleeping in the back. Both the father and his older son are intoxicated. While driving, they hit somebody, killed them. So now the son, because he was driving the car, is on trial for vehicular manslaughter. That is the case. And the thing is, part of this project, because it's also still school, right? While it's law school, there is an assignment basically that they're being asked to do, is you will populate the entire cast of characters for this particular lawsuit, and then it'll go through that way. That becomes important. And that's just a fact of this stupid episode of Suits LA. And it was a stupid episode of Suits LA. And I'm going to say that. And I hate saying that because this was their opportunity to move forward. There were no flies on them. Everything that had been established in the pilot was cleaned up. And instead they go back to this thing and introduce a bunch of contradictory stuff. But we'll get to that contradictory stuff. I just want to make sure that people know where I stand on the episode. Please.
Is there anything happening present time as well? Is there a B-plot present time?
So the B-plot present time that sort of mirrors it is that Stuart is still fighting the case for David Bowie. The David Bowie, did he murder this woman case. So he has gone to trial for that. And basically what we're seeing is that Stuart is willing to do anything as a defense attorney. That's the whole mirroring. Ted Black had nothing to do in the future. He was basically just a character in the past. And then there's also still the Ricky Erica bullshit that is going on. And, she did a favor getting us this footage that it makes sure David Bowie looks innocent. The fact his name is David Bowie, I feel so crazy every time I say it. But now, the only way to prove that this guy would not help David Bowie is the fact that David Bowie is blackmailing him with his sex tape. So Erica's like, you can introduce the sex tape, please don't introduce my client that he was sleeping with, because it would ruin everything. Because the person he was sleeping with, let's get out of the modern day stuff out of the way. He was sleeping with the head of one of the studio's wives. So if that comes out, this guy's going to lose his career in Hollywood. Because he stuck his hand in the corporate cookie jar, so to speak. So if that all happens and it falls down and Stuart doesn't care. But then also it's revealed that David Bowie doctored the footage. So David Bowie definitely killed that woman and created the fake video in order to give himself an alibi. So now Stuart's all, I feel guilty because that woman's blood is on my hands. And it's like, shut up, Stuart. You're so weak. I don't get it. And that is why in 2005, they're sitting there and okay, so I would like Eddie to be the younger brother. And that's like Ted trying to be nice to his brother. I want him to see what we do, be involved. But the younger brother's in a coma. That's a whole part of the case. And he's like, yeah, but he'll get to be there. And like he's playing that role if we use photos or anything. So Stu agrees to do that. But Stewart gets to cast every other role for the mock trial. And that, that's not going to be a problem. Also, there's a wrinkle. I didn't mention the wrinkle. The facts of the case are as they established. However, both Ted and Stewart will be allowed to add a twist to the proceedings because in the real world, in the courtroom, the unexpected can happen from out of nowhere. So that you understand this like crazy conjecture that they want to put into this.
But the man they hit was a Nazi. Oh, okay.
Oh, well, we should give him a Medal of Honor. So it comes time for the trial, and Eddie is there, just being there, and then Stewart calls his first witness, the father of the boy on trial for vehicular manslaughter. Who do you think he calls to play the father in this mock trial, Sejan?
Does he call Ted's dad?
Ted's dad. Yup. Ted's father is called to be and Ted argues the fact that he kept it a secret that my father would be playing the father in this case should count as his one twist. And then the judge, who's also the dean of the law college, no, I disagree. He's playing completely within all of the stuff established by the case. He hasn't changed any of the facts of the case. And it was a pretty good move on Stewart's part to bring in your father to play this role.
A fucking cruel one, but yeah, sure.
But it's a mock trial, right? It's one of those. I'll tell my mock trial story at the end of this. But yeah, so that whole thing happens. So then on the stand, the father, right, played by Matt Lesher, Ted's dad, admits that he was the one driving. And that disputes everything that was believed, but he says, I was driving the car. My son, he took the credit because he didn't want me to get in trouble. I can't live with that anymore. I was driving. I was drunk. So then Ted goes, all right, then I move that we have this person arrested. Under oath, he just admitted to a crime, and now we're trying him instead of the son. And it's like, oh, okay. And that's going to be his twist. That was Ted's whole twist, is the fact that now the case to see who's going to win is that. Now, this is where I have a little bit of an issue, because if that were to happen, you would get a new jury pool, right? It's a completely different case. You don't keep everybody who's there, but now you shift who's to blame. That's not how our judicial system works. But because it's mock trial, it's the same jury and all of that. And they just witnessed this guy under oath admit that he was driving the car. So it seems like a pretty slam dunk case.
Well, but this is why it would lead to a mistrial in any way, because it at the very least, it poisons the well in terms of reasonable doubt.
Yes.
Because now you can't tell which one of them drove. You can't reasonably say, because if the son keeps up the story that actually he was driving, suddenly now there's doubt, right? And
exactly.
So like you can't, if you so like that's why, to your point, you would need an entire new system, an entire new trial setup, because at this point the jury's been hearing all of this evidence in one direction, and then they heard one thing that completely contradicted it all. There's no way you can get to that to an actual.
You're not getting an impartial jury on this whole thing.
All it takes is one guy to be like, but what if the father's lying to protect the son, and suddenly you're screwed. The entire thing is fucked.
Exactly. So at the same time, Stewart asks his now wife in 2025, but then girlfriend, to play the therapist in this thing. And it's going to be a pretty easy situation. Ted is going to ask you if the son had ever expressed remorse to you about having killed this person. I'm going to say objection, attorney-client privilege, and then we're going to move on. And the whole reason that Stewart wants his future wife to be in that courtroom is because she mentioned her boyfriend in high school, how hot she thought it was when he would be at debate club. So Stewart basically wants to crow in front of his current girlfriend in 2005 and show how good a lawyer he is to her. So the whole trial starts, she comes in as the therapist. That happens the way that it happens. But then Ted, because Ted's a good lawyer, right? They're both good lawyers. They're not good people, but they're pretty good at what they do. Goes, is it true that you're in a relationship with the defendant? Now, she is playing a character. Based on this whole thing, everybody who has been brought in is playing a character. But she's so thrown by the question that she says yes. She should have said no, right? Because the character is not dating Stuart Lane. Helen is dating Stuart Lane. So she says yes, and that's how Ted introduces doubt into her whole testimony. Because if you're saying that a father would be willing to lie for his son, right, so he's not actually guilty of this crime, what is to say that a wife would not lie for her husband? And that's the whole big thing. So then it looks like, and she's all pissed off because, Ted, he also introduced the fact that in a private conversation with her outside of this whole thing, that she would one day like to marry Stuart. And that is the first time Stuart has this. Ted goes, didn't you tell me you were wanting to marry the defense attorney? Well, yeah. Okay, so a wife would not lie for her husband the same way a father wouldn't lie for his son. Like, it's this whole crazy thing. So she runs out in tears, mad at Stuart, because she didn't want to do it anyway until he's like, but I want to beat my chest in front of you and beat my best friend at being a lawyer so that you think I'm hot. So she's mad at him and she runs off and it's all that. So then it comes down to, at this point, Ted's like, Stuart has left the thing, and he comes back, and the judge goes, if you were 5 more minutes, I was going to rule on this, and you were not going to be the victor. So Stuart, backed into a corner, says, I call the younger brother to the stand. The younger brother being Eddie, right? He's playing the role. And Ted's like, no, he's in a coma. And he's like, that's my one twist. The younger brother woke up from his coma, and now I'm calling him to the stand. And now Ted doesn't want his brother to go up on the stand because he's not going to understand. Ted feels that he's not going to understand the difference about the fact that he's talking about the role his father is playing, and that when he's like, this father doesn't really care for his sons, he asked his son to lie for him initially, and now he's taking the blame. So it becomes this whole thing, and Stuart says to Ted, then why don't you just forfeit? If you don't want me to put Eddie on the stand, the only way that's going to happen is if you forfeit this case to me. And then he goes and he talks to his dad before the trial, and he's like, can you just change your plea from innocent to guilty? Ed won't have to go up on the stand, and this whole thing will be over. And Matt Lesher's like, no, I won't fucking do that, because your mother made you weak. You need to do the hard things, and you need to cross-examine your brother while he's pretending to play this role, and you need to win this trial. Otherwise, I won't do it for you. Right? If you were just coming to me to cheat, that would have made me happy because that's the boy I want to have. But you want me to fucking roll over so that you can win because you don't want to be mean to your brother? Go fuck yourself. And it's a real, I don't feel bad that Ted wasn't at his father's funeral, right? His father even says, your younger brother has always been your Achilles heel, which really leads to the credence of why he had the younger brother killed so that Ted could eventually rise like a fucking phoenix and be the man that he always thought he should be. Real gross shit. It comes down that Ted actually does forfeit. He says, I withdraw this, whatever. So Ted is not first in his class. Stuart is the first in their law class. But it's not a technicality. And that, technicality is why I'm supposed to believe Stuart, who beat fucking Ted Black, is such an insecure, whiny little baby in 2025. While, but what about Ted? It weakened every fucking character in the show, showing us this 2005 thing. Oh, and then the last thing, it ended in 2005, that Helen, Stuart's current wife, introduced Samantha and Ted. And that also, fucking boggles my mind. Because them knowing each other for 15 years before the events of the show in present day was hard to buy. But the fact that they've known each other for 20 years, and, she was so willing to toss Ted over the edge in the midst of his father dying? What the fuck?
There you have it.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I guess the one other thing is that Amanda Stevens took the job as head of defense, and apparently Ted never called her when he went to New York for the whole Pellegrini thing last week. So her feelings were hurt, and then his feelings were hurt because he was going to choose to date her rather than work with her in a professional manner. Every character in this show is a monster. And they also set up a whole thing about conservatorship with Amanda Stevens, but it's blink and it's going to be the bigger thing, I think, in the next episode. But yeah, that Tessusele, I don't know what you're doing, guy. Like, you were finally free from this whole beholden to the past stuff, and then, oh, let's go back even further. Why? What did that do for me? I don't know. I just don't know, Sejan. And you know what else I don't know? Can you tell me what else I don't know, Sejan?
Why
the fuck Microsoft would think it's a good idea to raise the prices on everything that they are selling in the video gaming space?
Yeah. So the inevitable happened. I don't know if we should act surprised or not by this, but with all of the stuff going on with Nintendo announcing their pricing and everybody kind of being up in arms about that, Microsoft did what Microsoft does and said, we're going to do that too. And everybody lost their mind.
Yeah.
A second time.
Yes.
News that is apparently...
No, what is that? Why are you talking, TV? But the prices are crazy. Like, they're adding $100 to the price of all of their consoles. So a Series X is now $600 from $500, and they weren't selling anyway. Right? The series.
Well, what's wild is that they said this, and then the pricing went into is going into place or has gone into place. It's a short time span, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going forward. Here are the expected prices on various Xbox consoles and accessories in the U.S.
I mean, go and get your shit now before you see those prices actually reflected.
And that's the other thing, is it really feels like there's this scene in Traffic Light. Do you remember the show Traffic Light? Was that everything that you did? Like, Will and I were real big fans of that one. Nelson Franklin, Roy from The Office, and that. Lisa Lapira is who I'm going to talk about in this. It's also Aya Cash's first big weekly project on TV. But Lisa Lapira has this moment where she's driving with her husband and they pass by a going out of business store, a store that's going out of business, and she goes, "Oh, look, that store's going out of business again, huh? I wonder how they're going to be saved this time." Because basically, that is what this feels like for Microsoft. This feels like a fucking fire sale. We're going to raise the prices soon, and then if you go on Amazon right now, an Xbox Series X is like less than $500, and I'm not saying like $450. It's like $498. They've reacted accordingly in order to have like sales right now. We're like, oh, I'm getting it before it's $600, but like, who is playing Xbox games right now? What is the reason to play an Xbox game right now? I'm legitimately asking. Like,
I mean, Game Pass is the one thing that was kind of keeping them going, and kind of still is. It's the only real argument I think Xbox has over anybody else, is that they have got a really good system in place for your ability to play games, and the idea that you can play them anywhere, and the idea that like there is a thin argument to be made for Xbox in that regard. But other than that, I'm with you. I don't know what else I would say to somebody if they were saying they were thinking about an Xbox. It's the reason I didn't end up getting one last year when I was doing my research on finally coming into the new century and deciding between a PS5 and an Xbox. The reason I ended up going with the PS5 was that there was at least something going on there in terms of stuff that like new games and stuff like that. I want to get in on that that big one right now, that big JRPG.
Oh, the 33 crores.
Yeah, I can't ever remember the name of it, but I mean everybody's gushing over it, so I want to check that out. Right, like so there's things on my PS5 I want to do. I actually just hooked it up to one of our nicer TVs in the house for the first time. I've had it on a nice monitor down in my room, but like for the family to see it, and like we all sat around and played like some Baldur's Gate for a little bit. I finished up a run of Dragon Age that nice. I definitely want to talk about, but like I don't want to cannibalize anything right now or get in the way of anything right now. But like I'm still doing things on my PS5, right? And I don't know if I had gotten an Xbox if I'd be saying that right now.
Yeah. So the game's now Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is the big one on Xbox right now. And you're not wrong. Game Pass is their biggest thing. But then you can also use Game Pass if you have a good computer. So, like, it's, like, I don't understand. Like, I understand that some people want just the easiest experience, but a lot of the Xbox exclusives are going to PlayStation. They have the Indiana Jones game, Wheel of Fate. That's now on PlayStation. And I really liked that the response from everybody on PlayStation was, I'm not sure why everybody was losing their minds about this on Xbox. That seems to be the feeling on the internet. I haven't played it. I don't know. But I do know that it was included with Game Pass. So, like, you don't have that $60 price tag that you got to pay if you're playing it on PlayStation, right?
And to be a little bit more cynical, if you don't have much else going on your system, it was probably a really good game. But on the PlayStation, as we were just saying, when there's more to choose from, it maybe doesn't stand out as well.
Yeah. So it's a crazy thing, but it is, like Sejun said, kind of why that's why I blanched at the prices of the Nintendo Switch 2, was the fact that this is giving them permission to follow suit at Microsoft, at Sony, with the Ouya. Like, they can all raise their prices now because the basic industry leader has just said our games are worth this much. And, not even a month, and Microsoft follows suit at a time where I hung out with a couple of guys who went to trivia on Wednesday night, and we talked about the only thing Microsoft has is Game Pass, but even then, is it enough for them to keep going? Like,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, like they've really like kind of dried up in the whole exclusives department. There really isn't an Xbox exclusive game that people really are talking about anymore. Halo has really, really kind of let them down the last couple of times out the gate, and like I just don't know what else they've really got to lean on. Like if they turned around tomorrow and said that they had a new exclusive, that might be interesting. Maybe reviving an old one if they said something like they were bringing like Gears of War, but even then, I don't know if I would buy in on a remake. It would have to be something new.
Yeah, and even then, Gears of War has had diminishing returns as they've created sequels, right? Because the first 3 was a full story, and then 4 did that thing where it's like the children of those original heroes.
Yeah, literally the kid. Yeah, it was like Gears of War kids. Yeah.
So it's just such a weird decision in the gaming space. And I will admit that I've had a weird relationship with video games as of late because of things like that. Especially, you finally started it when like ROM hacks are doing what they're doing right now. Mm-hmm. And not like
that Mario Mon, man, that is a fun time.
I finally got to Diamond City, so I'm in the world of WarioWare right now. And I had to deal with Jimmy T and Penny Krygor, and now I'm in Ashley's house trying to get upstairs to get the final keyword to get into WarioWare Incorporated to fight Wario for his Power Star. Like,
I threw it on the QTX, the little computer I picked up last year.
Yeah.
I threw it onto that so I could play it on the big screen upstairs, and it's been a fucking blast. I am not that deep into it. I've gotten my first star because you get that pretty much in the first like 30 minutes of playing. But I've gone on a little bit beyond that, but I have not yet gone for my second star. I've been doing a lot of capturing. Anyway, sorry.
No.
But I've been having a blast with it. I actually have plans later today to just like dive into it for a little bit more.
Yesterday afternoon, I'm like, I'm just playing until my battery dies. That's my plan for this afternoon. And it's probably what I'm going to do after I finish recording here. No, actually, if you finish Dragon Age, I'm going to work real hard to finish Dragon Quest III 2D HD Remake so that we can just talk about dragons next episode. For Mother's Day.
Yeah, we'll have a dragon conversation.
Yeah.
I have some things to say about that game after my initial reactions, but we'll talk about
that'll
all that.
There's a little teaser for next week. But yeah, it's just that stuff. And then also, Risky's Revolution finally came out, the unreleased Shantae game, and limited run games in hot water again because they used like old components and stuff. They hired, like, first of all, they were in real hot water because their 3DO games that they were selling were just DVDRs or CDRs that they burned the game to. They didn't have them pressed. Basically,
wasn't there also something where like games of theirs were just like dying because they were not put on the right stuff? Like if you after like 3 years, games would just not work because they were on a certain.
There was that whole thing, and then there was also the fact that the manufacturers of like the Rugrats Adventures in Gameland to use in an actual NES use like crap materials so it could kill your regular Nintendo hardware. Like essentially, and not it could, it eventually will. If you play this game, eventually your system will die. Like just facts of that. So they've been that, but this one, Game Boy Advance stuff, people took them apart. They wanted to see, what they used from motherboards with it. All used parts, reused parts, and it's just like the price that they charge for it. So I'm going to look up how much they charged, because maybe, no, there's no excuse for it. There is literally no excuse for it to use, old frickin' things in the thing that you're charging a premium price for. Let me find it. What is that? Shantae?
I will say, unless it's, I will put a caveat that unless that's the point, right? Like you're selling a Nintendo cart version of your game, right. So you're using this older material, but that's like, as the consumer, that that's part of why you're getting in on the bit, right? Yeah. To use that shit when you're promising a different thing, that's just straight fraud.
I understand that, but it's like, Adventures in Gameland, they used new components. Granted, those components can kill your system, but there are new boards that you can flash games to for use on the NES and the Super Nintendo. We see other companies do that, like Toplin's games that get released by like Castlemania Games and things like that. Like there are people doing it. How much do you think Shantae Advance Risky Revolution, a physical copy for the Game Boy Advance, cost?
Oh, for the Game Boy Advance specifically?
Yeah, specifically, because it's a Game Boy Advance game on a cart to use on your Game Boy Advance.
I would expect that I would probably be paying somewhere in the 40 to 50 range. Let's say 40 if they're feeling nice.
$60, $59.99.
Yeah, no.
So,
I part of it, I don't know. But like I would expect to be in the that range because of the idea that like I'm not necessarily buying. I'm buying this thing to show off as a thing that I have, right? Like it is a showpiece. It is something that I'm going to put on my shelf. I'm not going to be playing it more than once if I do, and like and so it's like fine art in that way. Like then people are willing to pay what they are willing to pay for it in that regard, because it's just something that they're just going to show off and say to people, look what I paid. Like almost in a way, the more money you pay for it, the better the story is, right? Oh yeah, I paid a pretty price for this, but I have one of the only ones in existence, is like something people want to be able to say in that regard. But you could. But
you have a limited amount of it, but
could still be consumer friendly.
Yeah. They do that. It's to pre-orders though, right? They're creating as many as there's a demand for. So like if everybody on the planet wanted a copy of Risky's Revenge or Risky Revolution on Game Boy Advance, like there wouldn't be any special thing if everybody agreed to pay that. So it's like this weird thing. And additionally, they did a collector's edition with I want to read this directly off their website. A embossed foil game box with gold cartridge cost $100. And again, that is what else? You also get it with that deluxe file box with a slip cover, Risky Revolution original soundtrack, magnetic acrylic frame to display cartridge, collectible coin, a poster, and a spinning enamel pill. That's what you got for $100.
Wait, Are Game Boy Advance carts safe from magnets?
Well, so it's one of those. It's like plexiglass, and they magnet together. It's an acrylic frame.
Oh,
it's magnetic how the two sides fit together, and then you put it in the middle.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's not that you're magnetizing it to the back of the thing and then erasing the
game
off the cart.
Off of it. Holy shit! Yeah, but it's just one of those situations where limited run games, they just...
For the record, I know that the reason that you could erase VHS tapes and CDs and stuff, it's not the same thing exactly, but it's kind of in that wheelhouse. You'd be right to ask.
It wasn't the wrong question to ask. Yeah, and it's just I'm so happy I got off the limited run train, right? I always felt a little squishy that I'm paying for a physical copy of a thing that's not going to arrive for a year and a half. The pre-orders for Risky Revolution closed April 7th, 2024. So these people paid them their money a year ago, and now they're getting, because it's sight unseen, these GBA carts that are using old like materials in order to work. So that means, like what you just said, these games might not work in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Wow.
And apparently there's some protection to like keep people from ripping the ROM. People have been trying to rip the ROM because, of course, that's like the first thing that people do with any game when it's released is they try to rip the files. And they've put something on there. So then, like, on the one hand, if this were made of pristine materials and it would be worth paying the money for it, I don't have an issue with that. But you've put copy protection on something that has an expiration date because it's already about 20 years old, the materials you used to put this together. The whole thing's just rotten. Like, and that's the video game industry in a nutshell, I guess.
How much would you pay for a copy of E.T. that they dug out of the desert? One of the ones that they dug out of the desert.
One of the ones that they dug out of the desert? I mean,
yeah.
Like, I have a copy of E.T. that I bought for $10. But the story behind this is specifically that this was one of the lost ones that we dug out, and now we cleaned them all up and we're selling them. I have no interest in that, but I mean, at the most, I'd want to pay the cost of the game. Like, I'm sorry, the whole reason that those ETs went into a fucking landfill was because they had no value at the time. The story of it and the existence, I would pay no more than whatever the MSRP was back in '82 when they wouldn't fucking sell. I'm being honest. Like,
No, I get it. My second question. Do you think everybody else would feel that way?
No, people would probably pay thousands of dollars for those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just to put kind of some of this into perspective about like this is the world that we're in. Like this is the way that people react to this shit, and it's it is what it is. Well, I wouldn't buy one either. I like the story is silly enough as it is that like just telling it is a fun thing. I don't need the proof to like be like, look at this thing.
Like I have my copy of ET, and I'm like, I have one of the copies of ET that actually sold. Right, I got it used. Somebody bought it. Right, somebody got boonswoggled into buying this. I don't know. I don't know. But you're right. And this will even have that thing. I think about the episode of Raising Hope where like I want one of your Pigurine figures and it's Sweeney Todd, the demon pig of Fleet Street. And it's the reason why that Barney wants that, and Virginia has it because she just bought all the Pigurines. But the reason why Barney wants it is because it was such a poorly like received character that nobody bought it. So then because nobody bought it, the fact that like the 40 people who did, those are now collector's items, right? Things that happens with action figures all the time, right? Nobody bought the final wave of Police Academy figures. And when I say nobody bought the final wave of Police Academy, the animated series figures, like stores didn't order them. Stores were like, no, your stuff's not selling anymore, so we don't care about this last wave. So those figures from that, the ones that released, like they saw international releases, or I have a Zed with the hang glider. I got him because I mailed away for the mail away figure that they had forever, which is the captain figure. The one who gets his hat glued on his head. I did a mail away for another one of those because I just had the points. And they're like, we're out of that character. Please accept in his stead this Zed with hang glider figure that like saw minimal release in the US. It's like the blank figure from the Dick Tracy line. I have way too many of these examples in my head. But the fact that, no, we don't want it to spoil the movie for people, so they never sold it in the US, but then it sold in Canada. So, like, it is like a grail of toy collecting because it only released outside of the US, but it released. So it's that type of stuff, things like that. You're not wrong. 20 years from now, people are going to be, oh yeah, I have one of the original shitty limited run games, Shantae Risky Revolution carts, with the bum like components and everything. I've never played it.
It's good, yeah. It's just
and it's going to be worth, and it's going to triple in value. It's
Well, it might not, right? Like, putting the monetary thing into it, that's where shit goes fucking haywire, because who knows what's going to work and what's not. You know, I don't want to talk about this like fucking Beanie Babies in the 90s, because, like, we all saw where that went, right? So I don't know if monetarily it'll ever be, but that doesn't change the street cred aspect of the whole game, right? Yeah. I still pay this much money so that I could say that I'm part of that whole story, right? Is what people are doing at any point when they're doing anything in this term, in the idea of historical or artistic, like purchases, like they're doing that just to say they're part of it. I was just like reading about like the Ferrari that they have, that like they only have 3 of them, and you don't even get to like take it home because it's not street legal anywhere. So you literally just leave it with Ferrari, and then like you go to them whenever you want to drive it, and you can drive it around their track because they have got the permissions to do that. But then you give it right back to them, and then you go home. There's even some people that don't even get to drive it because you need to have like a certain level of driving experience,
license, yeah.
Yeah. So like, there's like, oh, I own this thing, and then I sit in it, and somebody drives me around every now and then, and I go and I visit it once a year. But I own it. I have it. It's mine.
Right. It's like when Joey got the Porsche keychain in France.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I don't know. And the whole games market, we are not equipped to talk about it right now, but the effect that the tariffs and the trade war are having on the collectibles market, like not toys and stuff, but like retro game market is ridiculous. So,
well, and we haven't even really hit shit yet. I think that's one of the big things that I'm seeing right now is people are talking about the current price hikes and why they're related to tariffs and stuff. And there's some people that are saying we're not even in it yet. But like supply lines are basically at that point where they can supply us for like 8 more weeks. And then at that point, like, and that's supposed to be the backup. But like standard is we are supposed to always be pretty much 8 weeks ahead of whatever is needed. Like that's the goal, right? Not everybody hits that goal, but the idea is we always want to be a couple of months ahead of of the product that's actually needed in the country. And so we've hit that limit, and now we're eating into that. You're not supposed to dip into your savings at this point. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. So like, just wait until like midsummer with this shit, because some of this stuff is just gonna, you think it's bad now, it's gonna get crazy.
Oh, I mean, they keep saying that within like a month you're gonna have empty shelves on your Targets and your Walmarts. I don't know the last time you've been to either of those stores. They get empty shelves now. Right? Yeah. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like when we're at that point that they're prophesizing will happen. And I'm not just talking like in the luxury aisles, right? The luxury aisles, yes, you're not seeing as many things in the electronics department. We've been seeing empty shelves in toy departments since the whole Suez Canal backup, right? Like they've never really recovered from that basic thing.
Even COVID, right? Like Suez Canal was kind of in the middle of all of that, but I mean, even the start of COVID when shit started going sideways. No, the big thing for around here at least is paper goods, like paper towels, paper plates, the toilet paper, like that sort of stuff. Right now, they're doing a lot of mock facing, I guess is the term I used to use when I worked at CVS, where like, hey, we don't really actually have enough to fill this shelf, so let's move a bunch of product in a way that looks like it's full, but it is not full. There's nothing behind this shit. Like it's and to be clear, it's not a thing that works. Like you look at it and you go, oh, these shelves are empty still, no matter what. It just looks like at least organized, intentional.
Yeah, there is a whole section of any of the Targets in Rhode Island that is just empty shelves. And it is not pardon our appearance, we're moving it around. They just don't have anything to put there. And it's in the grocery area. And it's just like, what the hell? And they're already talking. I mean, like the foods were basically barren the last time that I went there. We're seeing it now. Like the prophesized date, those 8 weeks away. Like, we're already starting to see what that's going to look like, and it's fucking scary. Yeah. Especially as he's like, let's have a big army parade for my birthday.
That shit can't, I don't know why I'm saying this. Of course it's true, but it's one of those things where, like, please let this be the thing that's made up. Like, at some point, some of this shit has to be fake. I want one thing to turn out to just not be true so that I can take a goddamn breather.
Well, I know the one thing I would want to prove not to be true, but you know, that's a wonderful lifestyle thing. Ugh.
The Pope shit is really getting to me in a way that I didn't think it would, because like I don't give a shit about the Pope, and like it's not my like it is not in my heart that like, oh no, the church is being steered wrong or whatever. Like I don't know, but like it's more about the idea of the Pope as a world leader. The idea that he thinks that and he's not joking. It's not that he's joking about taking over the church or taking over just the seat and being silly about that. He's talking about taking over an entire like group of people all over the world.
Yeah.
Like the idea is it is a literal joke about world domination. And like that is where I am
being perpetrated by our leader, by our world leader in his office. Like that's not a joke. That's something like Colin Jost could say that and it doesn't bother me. Donald Trump says it, I'm a little bothered by it. I could say right now I'd like to be the new pope. I can't be the new pope. I don't fit any of the specifications to be the new pope. I have never been confirmed. But, you know, me saying it is very different from a man saying, yeah, I'd like to be the new pope. And like meaning I want the power that comes with it, right? Yeah, it's essentially the Godfather Part 3, Michael Corleone, I want to be in control of the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church, you know, slamming the fucking Bible down on his dick like, no. We are the Catholic Church. How dare you think you can blackmail us, Michael Corleone? We will shoot your daughter.
Yeah, man.
It's just, wild stuff going on. So I guess that's why we dive back into the world of comic book distractions. And I have to be honest with everybody right here. We're about to talk a little bit about Thunderbolts. Instead of front-loading this episode with all the spoilers, we're getting into spoiler territory now. And I'm going to spoil something from Thunderbolts asterisk that's pretty huge. And it's not what the asterisk stands for. I already did that when I called the shot like 7 episodes ago. It may have even been in our mini review of Captain America. And we're putting it in the episode for a couple of reasons. A, Sejan saw it before we recorded so we can slam it into the episode. But B, that mini review was an hour long for Captain America. It wasn't that mini. A bit of a macro review. But I do want to talk about Thunderbolts asterisk. So I'm going to give you till, well, I guess 126 to get out of here, because I'm about to spoil the end credit scene of Thunderbolts asterisk, because I have a problem with it. So spoilers in 3, 2, 1. I think they made a fucking mistake, Sejan.
By putting the 14 months later thing on there?
Nope. I think I'm fine with that because let's be honest, we have a movie coming out in July with the Fantastic Four, and then the next Marvel Cinematic Universe film comes out in May of 2026, and it is Avengers Doomsday. And let's be honest, my friend Sejan, I would be very surprised if they hit their shot that they called for a May 1st, 2026 release. I'm being honest about that. As I've watched
just because you brought it up, I do want to revisit one point about Doomsday that we debated for a long time, and I said some vague things at the time because we didn't have a lot of information. But the concern that everybody has about Doom being a Tony Stark alternate, and I at the time was saying to own everything. I was saying we don't know that for sure yet. We don't know that for sure yet. We should all take a break until we actually have more information. Well, we officially have a little bit more information, and I'm pretty much on the fence. I'm pretty much on that side of the fence now. That they're gonna pull some alternate shit with Tony Stark, and that's a bit of a bummer. My hope is still that they don't. But the evidence seems to be pointing towards Doom being somewhat related in some way to Stark, and that sucks. Just some stuff that's been said about like, oh, and the face that they see underneath is gonna distress the ball or some bullshit that was said by one of the Russo brothers, and it was just like, fuck me. So I just wanted to, just because we did talk as much as we talked about it at that time, I wanted to give a mini update on that real quick while we were in this Marvel stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so this final scene, the after credit scene in which there's they on a screen see a blurry image of the Fantastic Four's spaceship coming through.
And they specifically say that it is from another dimension. Look, I understand that the whole point of the mid-credit scene and the end-credit scenes are basically to satiate the audience, to make them want to go see the next film. That ruins one of the big mysteries about the Fantastic Four film for me. And that's disappointing to me. I don't know if other people feel this way, but for me, having that confirmation at the end of Thunderbolts that the Fantastic Four exist in a different universe from the MCU as we know it, and that they are coming from that universe to our universe in order to like bring the two worlds together, like that. It's just a disappointment to me. Like, it's the first time that I feel they gave away a bit too much in an end credits scene.
Did you not know that, though?
I didn't know that.
So to be entirely clear, I thought that was just what we understood. There's one of the previews for Fantastic Four focuses on Reed talking about the multiverse.
I have not. I've only ever seen, like, the trailer that's Ben tasting the sauce that Herbie makes. And saying that I gotta add some more garlic.
One of the trailers that they put out has an entire bit of Reed pointing to the multiverse and talking about how what they've brought to their world was their fault because he reached out through the multiverse and this is what came back. Like he has said that in the preview. So like,
but even that doesn't like I know the multiverse exists. I wanted to understand if this was going to be our world. The Fantastic Four did something, and then their memory was blanked from everybody, right? It's comic books. There's millions of ways you could tell that. Imagine if the Fantastic Four existed in the MCU as we know it. They fucked up so bad because they fucked with the multiverse that they wiped people's minds of it. And then what they have to basically deal with is the fact that rather than give the people 50 or so years to prepare for multiversal threats, they basically started them back at zero and made them think that they were safe in order to save face.
You can't pull the mind wipe thing more than once, and they did that already with Peter, which is actually funny when relating it to the Thunderbolts, because that is actually one of the big storylines for Sentry, is his mind wiping, yeah. Sentry, but they can't use that because they already used it for Peter.
I know.
And it is specifically Doctor Strange. It must have, like, when I was so, you know, all cards on the table, like digging into stuff about this movie to like figure out like how I knew these characters from before and stuff, and like also trying to put together how they made one of the best Black Widow movies, and it didn't have Scarlett Johansson in it, and like there was all of this stuff that I was like digging into, and the more and more and more that I was thinking about that particular plot line for Sentry was. The more I was just like, they just ripped that. They just ripped that straight from this character, and like, yeah. If there was never evidence that like they're scrambling, right? The idea that they were like, fuck, we already used one of this guy's biggest storylines for our other characters.
I mean, to be fair, they did that anyway, though, right? Because when Peter agreed to sell his soul to Mephisto so that Aunt May wouldn't die, it did a big mind wipe of everybody in the Marvel comic universe at a time. It's how they got rid of the fucking New Avengers, where Wolverine, Daredevil, and Spider-Man, because they were big in movies, suddenly were on the Avengers team, where two of those people would never become Avengers. And one would want to be an Avenger, but then like ultimately be like, I don't know if I'm actually worthy. You're worthy, Wolverine. Why don't you think you're worthy? I'm kidding. It's Peter Parker, because he's an insecure little baby. Sometimes he's awesome. But like when it comes to the Avengers, I'll just go to the Fantastic Four, demand they make me their fifth member. But the Avengers? That's too much for me. Sorry. It's just character inconsistencies. And you are right about the mind wipe thing. So, dimensional and the multiverse and everything, but it just like that confirmation in a canonical thing, it kind of just bummed me out a little bit. I'm just going to be honest with you. And on the tail end of what was a fantastic end scene, referencing stuff that I've been reading in like more recent comics, like 2019, 2020 stuff, where the whole storyline was the fact that the Avengers lost the copyright to the name Avengers because they were up in space dealing with a threat, and then the Great Lake Avengers, because Flatman is a lawyer, was able to buy that copyright. And the whole Avengers Z thing, like, these are all things that are, like, recent comic books and, like, made me squeal as the kind of person who's reading comic books. And then they had already shown that they were going to show Fantastic Four First Steps theme in the music. So I knew it was going to be related to that, but the confirmation, we had a breach on dimensional space. Oh, okay, great. That's fun.
I
for
don't know.
me.
I actually really liked it because one of the other big things to know about this is that besides America, we have not seen anybody who can control the multiverse,
True.
right?
That's true.
And so it was actually really cool because it almost seems intentional. Like, although it might not be, because the Fantastic Four famously make a lot of mistakes when they're flying through space.
That's how they became
So
so
like, but
fantastic.
it seems like it was. But it seems like it is like intentional use of like dimensional travel, which is really cool. I don't know. I mean, like I liked the reveal. I kind of knew it was coming as well. I was kind of wondering how much info we would get, and if it was not as much as I wanted. I don't know. I like seeing faces when they do these things, like the reveal of other people they're going to bring in. You know, like that's always a joy to me. And they didn't show anything other than a CGI spaceship, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like, so that was a little bit of a letdown in that regard, I guess. But
Yeah.
not the reveal itself.
I don't know. I just I guess the confirmation, because I've been trying to stay as, I mean, like, let's think about the fact that, like, there's a Thunderbolts trailer that reveals the Void, which, like, also proved, like, I knew that Bob was going to be Sentry because I read those books, right? And then as soon as I'm watching the movie and she's talking about the Sentry program, I understand. Oh, okay, so that's who Bob is. He's Robert Reynolds. That's wonderful. I'm all about this. He's one of my. I was there when the Sentry stuff happened. It was a cool moment in Marvel Comics. Do you remember that? Like at the turn of the century, where they just like, oh yeah, he's always been here. Everybody knows the Sentry.
So I was aware of Sentry as a character, but like I had no idea that there was this deep like when he like the big stuff about him like just destroying Manhattan and things like that when he becomes the Void and things, like I knew about that. So I knew about Sentry, I knew about this other side to Sentry, but like I didn't know there was like entire shit about him going to like Asgard and apparently did like wiping out like entire places there with like Norman Osborn apparently like in that like Avengers era.
Such cool stuff. I would have never thought that we would see Sentry transferred to film because of just how comic book he is, not just like as a character, but like his whole thing with this idea, like, because people were joking when they finally did the Void trailer that showed him as the Void destroying Manhattan in this movie. They're like, oh well, now we know it's the Sentry, it's official, let's start popping him into everywhere in the MCU. I don't know if you've seen any of those things where like he was there when the Avengers saved Manhattan. They added him to that photo. Like, it was good stuff. Like, it was fun stuff. And I'm like, yeah, because that's the Sentry. The whole thing is like overnight, everybody knew who this character was. And he is, as much as Hyperion is Marvel's answer to Superman, the Sentry is Superman in the Marvel universe, as far as I am concerned. Well, he's kind of like 1,000 Supermen. And he's Darkseid.
More importantly, what it let them do in this era, right now as we sit in this era of heroes, superheroes, and comic books, it let them eat a little bit of the boys' pie. Like it got to do Homelander. It got to do that kind of like, we're gonna do Superman, but Superman's gonna be evil, right? But not so much that it felt hokey or tropey to what everybody else is doing right now, right? Because I mean, like Invincible, right, and the boys are the two big examples. But I mean, even Mr. DC himself, James Gunn, had his hands on what was it, Brightburn or something?
Yeah, Brightburn, yeah.
Yeah, like a couple of years back, that was like what if Superman was actually a shitty kid, like that kind of stuff. Like we've done the evil Superman story a lot now, but Sentry, it allowed them in this particular version of him. And I don't know, you might feel this way about the comics. You're much more intimately familiar with the actual comics in that regard. But like, it let them kind of live in that world, play in that sandbox for a little bit, which was interesting. That Marvel got to kind of get their own hands on the ball there. Just something else that I noticed about Sentry. Yeah,
it was. I mean, it was also great that you have a bunch of characters who basically shoot and fight and cannot fly, like. Basically, with the fact that John Walker took a super soldier serum, Red Guardian also took a super soldier serum, it is up in the air as to whether or not widows in this world are given some form of super soldier serum. They have like waffled on that back and forth a couple of times, as to whether or not they are enhanced with the serum or not. So I don't know. Like, it's weird to do that, but they're nowhere near the levels of a god, right? Like, he has that great thing where he's like, if I'm better than the Avengers, there's a god on that team, I'm a god. Like, it's great rationalizing by the strongest person on the planet, right? He's 1,000 Captain Marvels because he has the power of 1,000 suns. And so making it an intimate battle that they have to wage with him was awesome. Like, I liked that a lot.
Oh, the resolution of this film. I almost don't want to spoil this.
We shouldn't, but we know what it is. So.
Right, but the climax of this film and the resolution of what this film and what needs to be done in order to stop the threat in this movie was... I wasn't really expecting it, and when it came, was really endearing. And, like, I actually really, like... It was awesome. It was really cool that was the way that this thing was, because they have been accused of, Marvel has been accused of the CGI battle problem, right? Like the third act CGI battle being overdone with them. And it's a completely earned criticism. This is not me arguing against that. But the few moments that they have dared to go against that, this She-Hulk, like, is the other big example of that. Like, when they have chosen to make the choice to not engage in that particular trope, it's been awesome. It's been so refreshing, right? And so this one, I just wasn't expecting to have that cathartic moment, not just with the movie, but with everything that the MCU does.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of nice because when you think about these movies, it did everything in its power to never fall into that trope. Every battle felt very measured, and it only lasted until it needed to be over. Like, that might seem like a weird thing to say, but it really was. Like, yes, we have to fight through these guys, but, like, they fought through those guys, and then as soon as they were able to do a non-lethal way to deal with them, that's what they did. Right? Like,
The closest that this got to any over-the-topness in that regard would probably be the car chase scene, where they give Sebastian Stan the most badass fucking Terminator moment. Like, so he's amazing in that scene. Them in the limo is hilarious and fun too. I mean, like, I adore David Harbour, and I'm so glad we got to see more of him, because, like, that is probably, though, the closest that they get to a true MCU style action sequence.
Yeah. Gratuitous action sequence. But even then, like, I think they peppered it with enough comedy that you never really, like, look at your watch. Like, this is still going on. They balanced. This movie was so well balanced. I was really... Yeah. I mean, I was looking forward to this because of characters like Yelena and the Red Guardian, right? Alexei. Those were characters I was excited about. And I was blown away by what happened here. I have one big complaint, and then I have the largest amount of praise that I want to lavish upon this film.
I think I know where you're going with your complaint, at least, but go for it.
My complaint is the Taskmaster, and not just the fact that the Taskmaster shows up for 30 seconds in this movie and is then killed, pretty unceremoniously. But then, to spiral off of that, on the one direction is the fact that there is a scene in the trailer where they're all in the office, where they are revealed, where they meet the Sentry, and Taskmaster is amongst them. That is false advertising. That is lying advertising. I don't care who you are. Like,
it might have gotten some reshoots, but Marvel does this. Marvel has done
they've done that.
We're gonna put fake shit in the trailer to throw people off or get people guessing or get people in the seats. That's the cynical part, right? Is that they're doing it to trick people into coming to the movie. Whereas their argument is they're doing it because they want to keep comic book fans guessing. They don't want to be giving too much away. But
it's a weird moment.
Yeah, no, the Taskmaster stuff, I called it as well. As soon as I got out, it was one of the first things I said to you. Is a little bit of a bummer that Taskmaster's gone so soon.
Well, and then the bigger issue, right? The bigger problem that I have with it is that she is killed by Ghost, and we have not seen Ghost since Ant-Man and the Wasp, where she was introduced. She wasn't much of a character in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Like, she's kind of just a plot device and a prop. Most of the stuff that goes to Ava's character in that movie is given to Lawrence Fishburne as Bill the Goliath. Yeah. So, like, she's not really a thing there. And then the nice thing about Thunderbolts is that it really kind of feels like a bit of a redemption for all of that. Like, John Walker gets a little bit more than we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yelena and Alexei get a little bit more than what we had seen because they were kind of just side characters before in the projects that they were in.
I want to say, I think they did a really good thing with Walker, though, in balancing, giving him, you know, character arc and growth and development in this, but still making him a pretty, irredeemable asshole.
I will be completely honest. I have always loved U.S. Agent. U.S. Agent is one of my favorite Marvel characters, and the reason why is that you get to see what if Captain America was just a fucking asshole, right? Yeah. And it's real because he's basically Captain America, but with the asshole knob turned up to 11. And
I think that specifically with what they're doing with Walker in the MCU, at least, they're going to lean very heavy on the fact that he's always going to be in Cap's shadow.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a very important thing for him if and when they continue with his character. Because, thinking about him and Sam Wilson in the same room right now and what the conversation would be like is really intriguing to me. But they're really going to lean on that fact that Walker's always going to find himself in
the shadow of Captain America. Yeah. I mean, even that is. Yeah. The other part about that 14-month time jump that we saw in the end credits scene, Sam has assembled his own version of the Avengers that the Thunderbolts, asterisk, are in direct competition with. So
I had my own problem with that scene, by the way, that end credit scene.
Okay, what was that?
Why has he not gotten a fixed shield yet? Even if they can't fix his shield, it's been a year and a half basically at this point. Why has somebody not gone out of their way to get him a new shield?
And also, there's no way that his shield was made of vibranium. I mean, maybe because that's the other thing. I want to let you bring up a really good point. But the idea, they do that sometimes with Captain America stuff where the person who damaged the shield is the only person who can ultimately repair it. So it's one of those things, maybe because it was
but why didn't they get him a new
power? Yeah, why wouldn't he get a new? Yeah, you're right. I get it.
I mean, Bucky, he's there with Bucky, who we know has an intimate relationship with the Wakandans, right?
Yeah.
And he could even say to them, "Don't make it good. Don't make it as good as Sam's. Give him a second-rate one. Maybe don't even use vibranium. Use something that's vibranium, electro." Coded.
It's just, you're right. It's a good argument that why haven't they fixed it yet? But also it's one of the, I don't know. It's weird. It's one of those things that they don't want you to ask.
It was funny. No, it was funny because they lean into the broken shield for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
To the point where even in the end credits, animations, they had him riding it like a cowboy. They lean into the broken shield. So I get why they did it for the bit, but logically he wouldn't be carrying that around.
Right. I mean, I don't know. It still blocks. It doesn't block as well. He can't throw it. No, you wouldn't use the taco shield. You bring up a good point, Sage, and you're right. You're right.
It's silly. It was just silly.
It's silly.
And that's the thing, is this movie really made me smile. Really,
yes.
It was a fun time. It was good. And it wasn't a mind-blowing experience in terms of the recreation of the superhero genre. It wasn't, but it was
a good movie. Of that, it was a good movie.
But it's going to get lost. It's going to get lost in the mud because of the fact that it wasn't groundbreaking, and that's all we want from movies nowadays. Did we bring up the Ben Stiller defense of Sinners defense? I say
no, we have not talked about that, and it's worth discussing.
Because of what I think is going to happen with Thunderbolts, Sinners comes out, does gangbusters, and then fucking Variety runs something about how it doesn't know if it's going to have the legs to make back its marketing budget or some shit like that. It was Sinner's not doing well on a reported marketing budget of an extra $90 million or something like that. And Ben Stiller's just the fuck are we doing talking about an original film coming out from a major studio by a phenomenal director, and this is the way that we're treating its current successful run in the box office.
Yeah. The fact that it didn't make back its budget in its opening weekend. It only made $48 million in its opening weekend, and that's not its full budget. And it's yeah, but the difference is people are talking about this movie. People are already making plans to see this movie next week. Sherry Shepherd's whole thing is what I take offense to. Before the variety thing was stupid, right? It was a real indicator of what's going on in Hollywood right now. But Sherry Shepherd, I can't go see Sinners because everybody's going to see it in the mornings. Well, don't these people have jobs? Bitch, you want to go see it in the morning and it's sold out. Who are you to talk? Right? Like, what the hell is that? Like,
you are literally asking to be one of those people. What is
like,
this?
You're mad that I can't get in to see Sinners because it's sold out in the mornings. Don't these people have jobs? Maybe they work at night. Maybe they took the day off. Like, it was the dumbest thing. Like, that was the most out of pocket thing. But
not everybody works Monday to Friday,
right?
Like some people work. Yeah, like some people work another day. I used to work a Thursday to Tuesday shift.
Look at restaurant staff, right? They mostly have Mondays off. That industry has Monday as their off day. So that's why all in the day they're going to see. It was just such a weird thing. But it is still selling out theaters. And the announcement that the weekend of May 15th, it's getting an IMAX 70mm re-release. Nowhere near me. I'm so upset that I missed my opportunity. I'm going to keep following that, though, because I'd really love to see it in 70mm at IMAX. And the fact that it did play in Massachusetts does give me hope that it might get booked again. Because I really, like, Sinners, we just talked about it. And let's not stay there. But you're right. That movie will be remembered. I don't think Thunderbolts will. And I'm going to say this. As much as I loved Thunderbolts, and I still have a huge heaping helping of praise to dump on something that Thunderbolts was able to successfully do, I am not in a rush to see Thunderbolts again. But like Brave New World, I wanted to see again. And I think part of the reason why I wanted to see Brave New World again was just how baffling the film was. Thunderbolts was this movie that, like, it was good. Like, I'm like, this is a well-made movie. The script is well-constructed. If there were reshoots, I'm not seeing the seams in the way that I did with Brave New World. Like, this was great. The only thing that I think they missed out is they have a moment where Wendell Pierce basically recreates his scene from Hackers, where he's being interviewed on the steps, and he doesn't say, "Thank you, Jennifer." Like, that would have been perfect. Like, just give the Hacker fans what they want, Wendell Pierce. We've been with you forever. No, but it was, even I said in the theater, "Thanks, Jennifer." Because that's what he was doing. He was doing the same exact thing as Gil in friggin' Hackers. I loved it. And I really liked it, and I really enjoyed this film. And I'm definitely going to see it again. But in terms of, like, Brave New World, I was ready to watch it right away. And mostly because there were some baffling moments. This one, I'm happy to sit with. And I've been sitting with Thunderbolts about some of the things that it introduced and the character moments and just that. And like, anything that you want to say, because I am ready to serve this up on a platter for this movie. And I know
the biggest spoiler of all, we now know what the asterisk stands for.
Yes.
You know, we kind of hinted at it earlier as Devon was talking about kind of the history in the comics, but this was this was a backdoor pilot for the new Avengers.
Yes. To the fact that final scene that we keep talking about was shot by the Russo brothers on the set for Doomsday. Like, that is the big thing that they've released. But now it's time to heap praise on the fact that, in my opinion, right, and I'm just Devon Decker, right, I'm just some guy, but in my opinion, they successfully created another Thanos with Valentina. Like, I know that might sound crazy and out of pocket, but I was so impressed with how they were able to introduce another huge threat of like her magnitude. Do I sound crazy for that? Like, it's just been little sprinkles of her throughout the thing. And even I was going to say, well, John Walker's shield can't be made of vibranium. But no, she was married to Martin Freeman, right? They were married, and he's got connections in Wakanda. There's no doubt in my mind that if she pushed him after the events of Wakanda Forever, she could have actually gotten a vibranium shield for John Walker as the...
I wonder if they're gonna do maybe like an adamantium one for him with the way that things are
Oh,
going
I
in
think
the
that'll
MCU
be. I think that's gonna be now. But I mean, like, because you're like his shield and all these connections. I'm like, well, I was about to say I doubt that John Walker's like black and red shield was made of vibranium. But then I'm like, no, Valentina's got like crazy fucking connections in this world. I would have no doubt in my mind if like part of her reasoning for helping Martin Freeman in Wakanda Forever was so that she could get her hands on a vibranium shield for John Walker. Like that does the way that they've made her so calculating and destructive, and even with her Tussie Gabbard hair, like that, like it's crazy. That was my mom's reference, and I really liked that. They made her just Tulsi. Was that?
Oh yeah, well, and the scene when she goes in to interrogate, well, she pretends to cozy up to Bob, but yeah. She's really in there just trying to get a read on him. When she's in like the shawl and has the necklace, and she says, "Does this look motherly?" to her assistant before she walks in, like that whole bit was just like fucking terrifying. Really, like the more we sat in it, the more I thought about what was going on, the scarier she became at that moment. Did they ever address in Black Widow? Did they ever address Taskmaster's ability to recreate Steve's shield? Did they offhandedly mention anything about Taskmaster having their hands on vibranium? Because they are able to recreate Steve's shield and like in part of their whole like shtick of learning how people fight and then using their fighting styles like to defeat them
in the comics, yeah. But the other issue with the Taskmaster, right? To go back to that part, is the fact that the Taskmaster in the MCU is so very different from the Taskmaster in the comics. Not just the gender of it, but the whole idea of the character in that.
Yeah, the identity, like the personality, I mean, is just completely like for reference in the comics, Taskmaster I famously know as like Wade Wilson's best friend.
Exactly.
And like they go on zany adventures together. Like he's very much like the straight man to Wade's kind of escapades for a while. When it's not Cable, it's Taskmaster.
Yes, that's everybody's been saying. This is Deadpool's best friend, and a lot of people think that they've cleared the board to introduce that version of the character. Which, if they're doing multiversal stuff, I'd be fine with that, and I do.
Shit, when they introduced Bob at first, and I didn't realize where they were going with the Sentry stuff right away. Like it didn't click because they said Sentry program by that point, but it just never like clicked. But I thought they were talking about Bob from Deadpool, and I was like, "Oh my god, are they introducing Bob? He's a
Bob from
Hydra? He's a Hydra agent, then an AIM agent, then like Bob is Bob's all over the fence on his allegiances."
Yeah, Bob will work for whoever's paying him, and he'll hang out with Deadpool if Deadpool can get him out of a bad situation. Like you're not wrong, but like that's the thing, is that the Taskmaster is so different from that. So I never believed that her shield in the MCU was vibranium. I think it was just a shield because shields are what are used in this universe.
So just to my point though, like the way that it behaves is similar to vibranium, right? So like I wonder if there's something to be said about that too.
Right, but they've never put anything on it. I think specifically she has a magnet on the gauntlet, so it will return to her. Like, I remember that as a moment in Black Widow, but I haven't seen Black Widow in about 5 years, which is hard.
This movie made me want to watch it again, man.
Yeah, me too. Because it was great. Black Widow was incredible, and this was essentially a Black Widow movie. That's what the director said. It was really, really good. It was a good sequel. The only thing that was missing was Rachel Weisz, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I love Rachel Weisz. She's in The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. I tied it back together. But what they did with Valentina de Fontaine was like so good. These like little sprinklings of her, like that I'll bring them there and all this stuff, and then for her to be the level of threat that she was. Also, big shout out to Geraldine Viswanathan as Mel. Her assistant was so good, and I love Geraldine Viswanathan. I think she's a great actor, and it was originally going to be somebody else that like couldn't do it because of scheduling issues. So the fact that she ends up coming in and like just kicking ass was pretty awesome. I love her character. Yeah, it was supposed to be Io Berry, but scheduling conflicts meant that she couldn't play it. And I think Io Berry would have been good as well. But Geraldine Viswanathan, I love seeing her get work. The stuff that she did in, oh my god, the show with Daniel Radcliffe. I can't think of the name of it.
And Steve Buscemi, right?
Steve Buscemi, yeah. This, which all ties together. I'm going to click
The God Show.
Yeah, I'm going to click on the name of the thing. It is called Miracle Workers.
Miracle Workers, yes, thank you. Yeah, the like anthology style show about
the first one is God wants to destroy the planet, but then if she can find a reason to not destroy the planet, and then it took place in medieval times, and then the Wild West,
and a Western,
yeah, and then eventually in a post-apocalyptic society, and just throwing all these actors who had been working together into these different roles, and she was so good in that, and I loved her in Blockers as John Cena's kid. Like, I've talked about Geraldine Viswanathan a bunch on this show, so to finally have her collide with the MCU was really good. And like, imagine being basically a young comedian who's up against Julia Louis-Dreyfus playing Valentina. Like, they have to play off of each other in so many of these scenes where it's just the two of them. And it is, there's never a moment where it seems like she's out of her depth against such a prolific actor as Julia Louis-Dreyfus, right? I mean, the most successful person from Seinfeld is Seinfeld, because he's like a billionaire. But outside of that, career-wise, she's had a second, third, and now fourth act after Seinfeld. So I would definitely say that Julia Louis-Dreyfus, probably one of the most successful female cast members from Saturday Night Live in terms of where her career has gone. And but to like, I never would have expected when they first introduced Valentina that she would become such a huge threat. And she did it, and it didn't feel forced or contrived at all. And I'm impressed how they did it. And I think that, like, it proves that they're capable of doing it, that Thanos wasn't some fluke in becoming... Because there's some other stuff with her where, like, you kind of feel for what she's doing. Yes, she's going about it in villainous ways, but, like, the only reason that we don't call Tony Stark a villain is because it all worked out for people, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like, if what's it had happened in Far From Home, if that system had blown up a bunch of people, Tony Stark's memory would have been tarnished, which was, you know, Mysterio's whole goal. I guess the last thing to say on Thunderbolts that I want to do is that officially Phase 5 of the MCU is over. So first steps are the first steps into Phase 6 of the MCU. I don't know if those mean anything at this point, but I just, there's so many loose ends that I don't think are ever going to get tied up from the weird Phase 4 stuff and everything that happened with Kang. Like, it's just... It's a little disappointing.
Look, I think what they needed to do, and this movie did a really good job of this, is they just needed to just stick to the stuff that worked and not worry about the stuff that didn't. They needed to trash some stuff. They needed to leave some things behind. There's no way they're ever going to be able to really kind of wrap up the Kang stuff. They're just not going to be able to do that. There is no reason for them to hold themselves to anything. People have already stopped seeing a lot of these movies, so people are already lost the thread. So, like, restarting and just taking some slower steps is exactly what they needed to do. And I feel like this movie was a really, really good balance. Because, yes, it was connected to older movies again, more so than some of the other stuff that we've seen in some places. Mm-hmm. But, like, it didn't feel any burden to hold itself to those other projects, right? Like, I really expected there to be more going on between Bucky and Walker with everything that went on in Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, exactly, yeah.
But, like, Falcon and Winter Soldier, to be clear. Mm-hmm. But, like, they don't really address it. Not even like a one-off comment, really. Like, I mean, there's a recognition between the two of them and things like that. But because, like, Walker specifically, like, loses his mind when he sees that Bucky is coming to quote unquote save them.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, really liked the whole. I mean, you killed an innocent man on national television. Well, innocent is relevant. Like, it was just so good how they peppered the things in. But then I guess I never finished what I wanted to say about the Taskmaster thing. Like, it's a shame that the Taskmaster is shown and then just killed unceremoniously, but then Ghost still really didn't get much character development. And that was a little disappointing. And I know that you got a lot of pieces on the table, but like for Ghost to still just basically be there. Like
I want to defend this a little bit because
Okay,
they
like,
actually did something that I didn't expect them to do, and that was actually go back to the Taskmaster stuff more than once.
Yes, true.
They didn't just kill her off unceremoniously. It was unceremonious. It was kind of out of nowhere and like felt like, oh no, I was not expecting that. But like the bit of them then trying to take stuff off of her and one of them being like, what the hell are you vultures? Like, what are you doing? And then later on, there is that moment where she turns to Yolanda and she goes, "You knew her, right?" And like they talk, and she doesn't forgive her, but gives her more context to consider in like the whole like guilt trip that she's clearly feeling, which is what this whole movie is about.
Yeah.
Is it's like forgiveness is not like an erasure of the issue, right? Like you can't just say sorry and then think everybody's just going to then be okay. But it's the most important first step.
Yeah.
Right. It's the most important way to get it's the only way to get the process started is to start with that attitude. And like that's what this whole movie is. And so like it's this beautiful moment where they do that. So like I agree that we don't get to see much development in her, but I think more to your point that we didn't get much from her in Ant-Man and the Wasp. This gave us a really good introduction to who the fuck she actually is.
Yeah.
So she didn't get much development because it was all discovery for us. And that's a choice that I wish that she had a bigger moment, but I'm excited to see what her next moment is because now that we know more about her, I'm really excited to see her again.
Yeah, I hope. I want her to get some actual development as a character, and I don't know. There is the moment she does have a bit of a moment where she's like, "There's a reason why Elena went in there." And I think that we need to trust her on this one. She is the one who agrees that all of them need to do the same thing that Yelena did in order to deal with this threat. She is the person leading that moment. And that's good too, but then it's also like, but I almost kind of forgot you were there until this. Because, there's so many pieces on the board, and it's just, I like... Think about something like Infinity War, right? Infinity War is probably still going to be my gold moment for a long time. They balanced the characters in Infinity War, which should have been an impossible task, in such a beautiful way. So then when you only have like 5 or 6 characters that you're trying to balance in a film, for one to like still feel like they're underfed by the story, it's just a little disappointing.
This is a common problem in the MCU, though.
Yeah.
This is the Hawkeye problem.
Yeah.
Think about the very first Avengers and what ends up happening with Hawkeye in that movie. We get a little bit of him earlier on in like Thor, but then like we finally get the movie that Hawkeye is supposed to be in, and he's not even himself for half the movie. And then even when he is himself, I think he gets like one scene, and it's the scene that they all reference as him flying on the glider. Is like the scene that everything references about Hawkeye in the Avengers, because it really was his only scene as Hawkeye.
True. It's very true. Did you hear about that they wanted to do a Hawkeye season 2, but they offered him half the money he got for the first one? Like, that's just crazy.
That sounds to me like they didn't want to do a Hawkeye season 2, but they wanted to be able to tell fans they tried.
Yes, exactly. That is just because he's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not half a person just because I was in a car accident. I believe it's his exact quote as to how he felt about that. But no, this made me believe that these level of heroes, and these are the level of Marvel superheroes that I've always kind of been a fan of. I read Black Widow comics as a kid. Mm-hmm. It's like there's a reason why I have an affinity for the character. There's a reason why I really like seeing how they've translated that character to the big screen. And yeah, if this is meant to be a Black Widow film, and that is what, who's the director of this? Jeff something, and I feel, what is his name? All these Jeffs today. Oh, Jake Schreier. I like that he did that. Jake Schreier, by the way, my favorite movie prior to this one was probably Paper Towns. I really like that. When they all sing the Pokemon theme song to Not Be Afraid, that worked for me. Anything else on Thunderbolts or anything else at all, Sejan? Because I think, people got Cinco de Mayo's to celebrate.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, that wraps it up. I would love to see Thunderbolts again. If somebody said to me right now they were going and wanted somebody to go with, I would go in a heartbeat.
I would go again too, because Dale ended up not being able to come. She got called into work, even though she had taken the day off and everything. And like, I think that this is a movie that she will really enjoy. So I've been trying to convince her to go see this movie. So like, I say that I'm not, but I want to share it with her. But in terms of that, it's not one that there are movies that like I immediately want to see again. Power Rangers 2017 is always because I walked out of the theater, bought another ticket, and sat back in my same seat. That was fun to do. This one, Thunderbolts, I will definitely see it again. I have not watched Brave New World again. Thunderbolts, I'm excited to get to watch again. I will say that. But it's like one of those where, like, if it's 6 months from now, I'm not going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for joining us for this episode of the Say Report. If you want to continue the conversation, we have a Discord that you can join, invitations to which are available wherever we are on social media. I mentioned it a little bit earlier when we were celebrating Brendan Fraser History Month this episode. And that is currently Facebook and X, formerly Twitter. Just go to the bio, click on the Discord link, and you can join us for the conversation. You can also send an email to thesayreport@gmail.com. We can facilitate with an invitation that way, or we can just communicate like it's the turn of the millennia, and you just send us emails and we'll respond to whatever you have to say. Is a good time. The thing to remember there is that if you're writing something for just me, Devon Decker, or just him, Sejan Sarowick, just put our names in the subject line and it will be distributed appropriately. All of that said, William, please bring us home. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejan Sarowick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.